This is a presentation of Northeast Streaming Sports. You're listening to TGI Sports Talk with your host Keith Angle on Northeast Streaming Sports.
Good morning, everybody. Keith Angle for TGI Sports Talks. Are you serious? Right here on Northeast Streaming Sports. I'll be joined by my whole co-host, the Mad New Yorker, here in just a bit. Want to welcome you all in on a beautiful Friday morning. Going to be very hot up here in the Northeast. Today's only going to be in the lower 80s, but we're going to get to 95 tomorrow and 90 Sunday. So again, spring lasted all of about 6 hours here, and we've gone to summer. I want to thank all the groups as always for your great participation. The engagement weekly is really growing, and we're starting to get some interest in some advertising. So I got to find some time to dive into that, but I don't want to take away from the quality of the show. But we'll get some people in front of you that you might be interested in. And speaking of which, Northeast Streaming Sports, as you know, is a big sponsor this year of the Dream Ride Experience, which raises money for the Homeland. I got it right. I want to say Homeland every time. The Hometown Foundation. $3 million they raised last year, $18 million overall. Great cause. Try to get down there that weekend. It's not that far away from us here in the capital area in Farmington, Connecticut. I really didn't check the distance, but it can't be that far. Hour and a half, maybe. And I think I'm going to try to get down there that Saturday. But in the meantime, and I'll get to your good mornings here in a second, let me just play the little clip that we have promoting this, and we'll talk about it for many more times. That sounded like I was speeding up there a second. Many more times before August. So take a look at this, and we'll be right back with the Mad New Yorker.
The Hometown Foundation is excited to bring back the Dream Ride Experience, August 26th to the 28th at Connecticut's Farmington Polo Club. Join us in celebrating the accomplishments of our Dream Riders while enjoying live music, a car and motorcycle show, family fun zone, pet adoptions, canine demonstrations, the Fireman's Chili Cook-Off, and much, much more. Get your tickets today.
So a great experience. Guys, get out there and support that any way you can. Visit the website, and we'll hear more about it as we go through the summer months here, which are just beginning. Good morning to Alan. Good to have you here this morning. I know you'll probably disagree with some of the comments I'll talk about with Arch Manning this morning. Dave Guyette, good morning. Go Yankees. Yes, sir. Continue their hot streak here. Well, they lost last night or yesterday, but whatever. We're getting the opposite in Oklahoma as far as weather, 60s and 70s. Well, that's refreshing for you, I guess, Alan. Listen, guys, we're going to jump in just real quick before I bring in Carlos. We're going to talk this morning. We're going to continue a debate that we had Wednesday night on the College Sports Huddle about Arch Manning, where he may end up, what the Manning, how much influence they're going to have, the Manning's family are going to have on Arch's decision, and why I think Mississippi is the best spot for him. I'm not saying that's where he's going, guys, but they are being considered, and they should be considered probably more than they are. And by the way, these things are very unpredictable. So we'll talk about that as we get going here. So let's jump in and bring in the Mad New Yorker, Mr. Carlos Chavez. Good morning, Carlos. How are you today?
Good morning, everybody. How you doing, Keith?
You ready for some hot weather down there in the city?
Oh, my goodness. It's supposed to get up to 90 degrees. Oh, no.
So is it still like, again, I'm an old guy, don't forget. I mean, do we open up the fire hydrants and run through them?
Yeah, now they don't open them up for kids to run through. They open them up so they can wash their cars.
Oh, well.
So fun and annoying.
Technical use, I guess so. Oh, gosh. Whoops, I had a cameraman here from USC, got a player from Pitt in the portal. We'll dive into that, the details, the minutia of that stuff, certainly Wednesday night, Alan. But we're going to continue this morning, a little debate. And Carlos was involved in this quite a bit, as Alan was.
Morning, Alan.
So listen, where is Arch Manning going to decide to play? And do the Manning have an issue with Lane Kiffin, or do they have a preference where he goes? Now, I'll be honest with you. Before we get started, nobody's a Lane Kiffin fan except me on my shows. I know that. I know you are not. And probably that's tainted, as I said in a text to you the other day, just like Peyton Manning's feelings could be tainted by the fact that he left UT high and dry. 2000? I don't even remember when. 2007?
Yeah,
around there. And I understand why they would be upset. But Lane Kiffin, I think it's a bad rep. I think Lane Kiffin is growing up. Was he a child? Was he a petulant child back in his early coaching days? Absolutely. But I think the things that he's been through working with Nick Saban and rebuilding a program at Florida Atlantic and now rebuilding Ole Miss, I think he's grown up and has become a real coach. And I don't see there's any reason Arch Manning with the history, and I'll let you go here in a second. I know you're pining to jump in here. With the history that Arch Manning has at Ole Miss, not he has, his family had. His grandfather was one of the best quarterbacks ever to play college football at Ole Miss. His father was a great player, maybe the best player of all the Mannings until he got hurt. He was a wide receiver. He went to Ole Miss. And his uncle, which, again, I think his uncles are going to have less influence than people think here. I think it's his father and his grandfather. Again, it would be a great place for him to go. And he could go to Alabama. He could go to Georgia, and he'd have a much better path, simpler path, maybe to a national championship. But would it mean as much as going to where his father and his grandfather played and possibly win a national championship there? And that's not a sure thing. I get it. But go ahead, Carlos. I'll let you jump in here. So
Arch Manning, no matter where he goes, is going to be an impactful player for sure. That's no question on that. And ideals are going to come in left and right for him, whether you think he deserves them or needs them, or both. So
hold on, wait. Remember again, I got into a different topic too about whether he deserves it. Does he need it? Probably not. But that's what I'm talking about. Wherever he goes, his star is going to follow him. He's going to get NIL money wherever he goes. So it doesn't going to matter where.
Right. And then the one thing that we don't talk about is Arch Manning himself. You mentioned all the legacy stuff from Ole Miss, that Lane Kiffin's there. He's a morning, Bob, that he's NFL college coach that he teaches these kids, systems, different strategies. Morning, Dave. But the one thing we always tend to forget when we talk about some of these ranked players, top 10 players, and coming in out of college is that they're like guys growing into men. They're going to make their own decisions. And this is one of the places that they can set themselves up for that. And because that's going to be one of the questions that they're asked when they're coming out and they're doing their the combines, right? How did you choose on the university you went to? What made you go there? And so we have to take in the fact that he's going to make a decision. And the media might want him to go somewhere, and his family might want him to go somewhere else, and his father and his dad might want him to go anywhere. But at the end of the day, it's going to be up to Arch. And any decision that he makes, he's already ahead of half of all these kids going to college because of the pedigree that he's coming out of. So the pedigree he has and skills that he has and the family that he has. So he's above and beyond most of all these kids going into different schools that are top-rated college athletes. So he's going to make a decision, and it's going to be on him, on his shoulders. And this is going to be the first big, huge decision that he can make. And the one thing that a lot of his family members, even Eli, who was in the interview, asked, "Hey, is Arch Manning going to Ole Miss? Is he going to follow the footsteps of your family?" All these questions, and Arch and Eli said about Arch, he's like, "I don't know what he's going to do, and I just want him to be a kid. I just want him to have fun, and whatever decision he makes is going to be on him." And I was kind of taken aback because that's Eli Manning talking about his nephew, and I'm like, wow, I'm sure his nephew is going to ask him questions about college at Ole Miss. and he asked his dad and his grandfather. But that's pretty big of somebody who has that kind of impact on his own nephew, you know, to say something like that, which means that he's putting the ball in his nephew's court, right? He's letting him handle the decision, and I think that's the only and best way for these kids to go, because as much as family has a huge impact, how far you're away from your family, what they're going to pay into your university, you're the one going to the school, and you're the one going to classes, and you're the one playing the sport. So it's going to be up to Arch and some of the top teams that people are calling out in the media. I feel like maybe he won't be interested in. There's talks of him even going to Florida in the SEC.
Yeah.
You know, there's talks about almost every school. And I mentioned Oregon just for the mere fact of maybe he wants to start off, and he knows, and you look at the history of Oregon and all the QBs, most of them get an opportunity to be in the Heisman running.
Yeah, he's not.
Mariota, Herbert.
He's not going to the Northwest. He's not.
You don't know. We don't know. This is what you said. It makes this a great argument. We don't know where he's going to go, and everybody can say something. But for me to have the opinion and say that he's going to Oregon, it's not really far fetched, you know. And especially if he gets an NIL deal and one of the biggest ones from Nike, that's not far fetched.
One thing his father said, though, is that, you know, Arch isn't just visiting schools just to visit schools. He can't get him to go. He wants to hang out with his friends like any high school kid. And he says when he gets him to go, it's because he has an interest in that school. So anybody that he's visited, you can't rule out. And the top teams he's visited were Ole Miss, were Georgia, Texas. And Georgia and Texas in the last week have again, depending
creeping up, right? They keep getting mentioned in the media.
Yeah. I mean, again, do people really know? To go back to your comments about, and I know, Alan, you had a couple comments I want to get into, but the other night I know you were talking about how the Mannings don't necessarily like Arch or Lane Kiffin. Well, I can't find a single comment anywhere. But there aren't many comments in general, but not one comment except Peyton Manning back around the time of the Tennessee thing, making a negative comment about Lane Kiffin. And basically, you know, he'd like to punch him in the face is what he wanted to do. But that was based on a bias from a situation that happened at Tennessee many years ago. And Lane Kiffin's had a chance to grow up. Eli Manning and Archie Manning both spoke very highly of Lane Kiffin when he came into this Ole Miss job. They were excited about what he was going to bring here. And you're right. Arch is going to make his own decision. But I just think that Ole Miss is going to be in play, and he's not going to be removed from, or Ole Miss won't be removed from contention just because Lane Kiffin is the coach, which I think gets implied by some people, because he's become a great coach. He's going to have a great offense to play in, and I still think, again, go to Alabama, which Alabama, again, if we want to go by what we read, is falling out of the race pretty rapidly, although Arch has had great things to say about Nick Saban. He's had great things to say about Lane Kiffin. Kirby Smart. He's a smart kid. He's saying good things about everybody, right? He's not stupid either.
Right. Yeah.
And he's got some pretty good mentors because they've had to deal with this type of pressure. You know, Peyton was highly recruited. All three of these kids were highly recruited. And they've been through these recruiting wars. And I want to comment one other thing here, because I think it's kind of relevant. Remember, Archie kept Eli from going to San Diego.
Right.
Not drafted. I agree. That does mean I think Archie wields the most influence here of anybody. I really do. Even his dad.
Really?
I really do. Archie, I still think, he welded it for his sons, and I got a feeling it kind of is, and I don't know that. That's just a feeling that I have.
We have to remember that Tennessee wasn't in the top list for Peyton to go to when he was coming out as a highly rated quarterback. I mean, they talked about him going to Stanford, and he just kind of pulled the rug off of everybody, and with the support of Archie. He ended up going to UT, but and he was in the SEC. Good morning, it's my niece there. So like we can't take anything away from this kid. He's set up to be in the best situation for himself, and he just has to make any decision, and whatever decision he makes is going to turn over this whole college rankings for sure. Like, if he goes to a Pac-10, a Pac-12 school, you're going to be sure that they're going to be the ratings are going to change. So.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I've read comments about the fact that he should go out west because he'll have great marketing opportunities in the LA market if he goes to USC. Well, he's, again, as we've said, the marketing opportunities are going to follow him. If he went to Dixie State, what was that school that was driving me crazy the other day? Was it Dixie State?
Dixie State, yeah.
Yeah, if he goes to Dixie State, he'll get money for going there. So it's not a huge deal. Kenny's right here. The media is, and Kenny, I know you commented before. Yeah, I'm still talking about Arch Manning because I didn't feel like I got to the end of that conversation the other night. So we thought we'd carry it over here a little bit and give Carlos a chance to voice his.
I think Kenny wants this guy to go to Notre Dame.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Notre Dame's in the running, and I wouldn't count them out. And he's right. And you mentioned it before. Nobody really thought Peyton was going to Tennessee. I think that's a great example. There could be a school off the board, and maybe you're right about Oregon. And maybe he'll go to Notre Dame. You look at Notre Dame, be a great opportunity for Arch Manning, and that would be a great coup for Marcus Freeman in his first second recruiting class.
I think we just don't have to kid ourselves and just say, this is where he's visited these schools, so this is where he's going to go. And if we're talking about Arch Manning and the schools that he has visited, and if you look at articles coming from Rivals and some of these ESPN college shows, and they're highly talking about the SEC and that he's going to stay there. I don't know if that's quite true, because you could be at any SEC school and still not make the national championship. That's possible.
It's a much easier road, though.
I think on the contrary. I don't think it's a much easier road, because like you have those four highly.
Yeah, but somebody's always making it, Carlos. That's my point. Somebody's always making it. You're never going to get left out like the Big 12's been left out in the past, or the Pac-12. Nobody, the champion's always going to the playoff, always.
Yeah, so that's something he's going to look at, right? He's not dumb, and he's not going to, put himself in a bad situation either. And right now, the Nick Saban situation is starting to blow up in Nick Saban's face, right? People are starting to talk about how he pays all his recruits, and how, some of the stuff that's coming out of media, and how he's, just a narcissist and stuff like that. So, I mean, we don't know what's going to happen.
A narcissist is new. I don't think that's a new situation. But the payments, it's Nick Saban's not taking it out of his pocket. But yes, things are going to start coming. I don't want to get into the whole NIL thing this morning. We'll go for the rest of the show. But that thing is going to blow up big time. It's already starting to, because again, it's been used as a recruiting tool, and it can't be used here. I don't think it really would be used as a recruiting tool here, because again, as I said, ad nauseum, he'll get his money wherever he goes. Just to comment real quickly here, that offense, the offense at Ole Miss will be good. Jeff Levy has not been with Lane Kiffin his entire coaching career. Lane Kiffin is a brilliant offensive mind, and I don't think that's going to have a huge effect. Maybe it'll have a small effect, Alan, but I don't think it's going to have a huge effect. The oldest kid is always the one going his own way, because they do not want to follow their dad. Well, the oldest was Cooper, sorry. And he did follow his dad, so he followed the Ole Miss. And Peyton, I think, is a little bit of he's the lone wolf in the family, I think, Peyton, and I think he did go his own way. And
if Arch Manning picks Penn State, for instance, who's going to say, that's a bad decision? And they already know Franklin. You don't know, we don't know. So.
Again, the media is just for people who can't think for themselves. Well, I can think for myself. I don't know how to take that, Kenny. I don't know if I just got backhanded or not. I'll figure that out later. I may not be smart enough to figure it out right away here. Anyway, I think let's look at, and it's all, I don't want to say, I think he will go to Ole Miss. I have no idea where he's going. I'm telling you why I think it would be the best story for college football would be Arch Manning going to Ole Miss. I think it would be awesome. One of
the slowest and non-stories are legacies going back and playing where their professional parents play in today's media. I mean, just when I was rooting for one of the guys who was the son of quarterback Lake, Lake Jr. I was hoping that he would go to, maybe to UT, maybe to Tennessee as a Titans and get picked in the later rounds, but he ended up going staying home. You know, he ended up getting picked by the Rams.
You said Blake?
Lake.
Oh, Lake. Okay.
Yeah. And Lake Jr. And he's, you know, and he played in UCLA. So he just stayed home. You know, like we don't, you know, everybody was thinking, you know, he's going to play in Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's going to pick him up. And he's a legacy, you know. So, and he played where his dad played. So,
I agree.
You know?
I agree. And Kenny, I guess you're right. I don't consider myself media. It is a talk show. I offer opinions, right? And my opinions are gathered by looking at information on both sides of a topic. You know, I don't just read one article or one source. Again, we can take this even out of the world of sports, Kenny, which we're not going to do. But people tend to find one source, and that's where they get all their information from. And it's dangerous because, you know, you have to have different points of view, and I've done that. And actually, Alan, I want to go back to your comment, too. It's funny. I think you chastised me a little bit, Alan, the other night, because he said Ole Miss wasn't even in the conversation. You hadn't even heard them mentioned. I haven't heard Michigan or Ohio State mentioned. That doesn't mean they won't come into play, though. I don't disagree. Back to Carlos' statement about Oregon. Who the heck knows? Nobody knows. Anyway, it's a topic that will continue. I wanted to just jump into it a little bit here this morning to continue on. And so, because I was probably misreading all of Carlos's comments, and sometimes you lose context in comments, and it's good to hear the voice. So I think everybody just thinks I throw so wild things on the wall that it's not going to stick, and then they get kind of the eyes open when things happen. And I say it's going to happen. Well, I'll wait for that day to happen and see what happens in my eyes.
Well, a la Trotz, you didn't.
No way. You said he should get fired. That doesn't mean he should have been fired still. I can't say you were right just because he got fired.
Well, I mean, I like that they fired Trotz. I don't like that his replacement, even though he was a good replacement when Trotz was gone. But that's a story for another day.
It is. We'll get into some of the NBA and hockey coaching news. Once we get through the playoffs and that heats up a little bit, because that's going to get very exciting with the Lakers open. And
so, what coach is on the hot seat in the MLB?
We're going to jump into. I'm just looking for my banner here. Hold on, I just lost.
You mentioned a coach, and I was kind of like shaking my head, like,
yeah, my bad. MLB managers, they're managers, they're not coaches. Don't forget, Carlos.
Yeah,
we have this conversation.
They manage and they coach.
Who should be? Who shouldn't be? Well, we're going to go. I think we'll go through this by division and just take a look at who should be in trouble. I'm going to start in your favorite division, if I can get to my standings here. How come I don't have my standings up? I'll just grab it here. Hold on.
I got them. I got my coaches written down by names, not by divisions, by teams.
Well, throw out a name. We'll just cross them off the list. I'll make sure.
All right. Let's start with Don Manley.
Don Manley, interesting. I've got him on my should not be fired list. He may get fired.
He might get fired. I think he should leave.
Just management coming in. And and he's a guy, and I've got a separate column of guys that I think could walk away on their own. He's certainly a guy that could walk away on his own. He's done, have they set the world on fire there? No, but Don Mattingly is, made that team at least not a laughing stock out there. And I think he's done a really good job managing a horrible, horrible organization. Yes, Derek Jeter was a big part of that horrendous management that went on out there. These are the first ill words I've ever spoken of the captain, but he did not do a good job there, and neither did his management team.
Well, I mean, okay, we gotta put this into context. Like exactly what Derek Jeter did. There has been no other executive that has done what he's done while he had the opportunity to be being at this team. And I say it in the sense where he got rid of the contracts that were heavy and hurting the team. He was able to establish the rebuild of what is now his minor league teams. Mm-hmm. And even during contraction, mind you, MLB is affected by the contraction that happened in the minors that people don't really talk about.
Yeah.
And he's been able to keep Don Manley focused in and excited about what the team was doing, because you can't keep a manager or get a manager at a team if they don't feel like they have an opportunity of winning. Right?
Yeah.
So Don Manley, for me, is on the hot seat, not because of what he has done, because everybody who talks about Don Manley have nothing bad to say about him. He's a good coach. He's a good teacher, mentor. He knows the game in and out from every aspects. If you even pitching, which is a lot of people kind of like, are kind of I'd say astonished that he understands pitch the way the pitching is working and how he chooses pitching coaches and things like that. So right now, before the season started, we have him at 378 wins and 499 losses for the time he's been there, which puts him at above 400, about 430 winning percentage, which is awesome for
even a
baseball
during the COVID season. By the way, don't forget.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, a team in the playoffs during the COVID season.
Yeah, yeah, right. So, which is awesome for the situation that Jeter has put Florida through to kind of reestablish himself as a competitive team in the East. So, to me, and coming from the New York area, I always put like development in the back burner because we want to see teams win now. We want to be in the now. We don't want to think about the future. We don't want to think about the past. Mm-hmm. We want to be in the now and we want to win. And we want to get to championships. That's what New York teams want. Doesn't matter whatever team that's in front of that's after New York. That's what we want. We want championships. That's what we pay for. That's what fans want. That's what they pay for.
Agreed.
So development is in the back burner for me when we talk about coaching and manager and all that, mentoring and all that, because we want to see winning teams. And Don Manley was not and hasn't been on that much of a run with the winning team. He hasn't had that opportunity. So to get the wins and be at the winning percentage that he's at is remarkable and it speaks to him. You have to give him credit. And if I'm Don Manley and I'm still kind of in the same situation, I might look on to moving on from the Marlins.
I think if Manley had another opportunity, I think he'd definitely move on.
Yeah.
Again, remember, before he was there, he was Joe Torre's handpicked guy to take over the Dodgers, and he did pretty well in LA. I mean, he got to the NLCS a couple of times and lost in the division series one other time too. So
again, look at the leadership he had in LA. The ownership was going through a divorce. Mm-hmm. He was not willing to spend money where he should have spent money. And once Don Manley left, the divorce kind of happened and magic came into play. So again, he was affected by that, but he did very well for the situation he was put in.
And remember, I got to remember too, when Joe Torre left New York and they were looking for a new manager and came down to Girardi and Mattingly, I was upset Mattingly didn't get the job. In retrospect, I'm happy he didn't get that job because I don't think he was ready then to manage, especially in New York. He had a lot of stuff going on in his personal life at that time, and I think it would have been a disaster. And he may never have managed again if he had gotten that job then. So I'm happy for Donnie, and maybe he makes his way back to New York at some point. Who knows? We don't know today. Buck made his way back. I'm going to get to your comment here in a second, Alan. I want to bring up Dave's comment. Definitely not Buck or Boone, and I get this. Listen. I'm still not giving Aaron Boone a total pass because, again, I'll compare these two guys in the sense that I'm still pissed at Aaron Boone and have lost all respect for Aaron Boone because he kept his job by throwing his coaches under the bus. When management said, you can stay, they got to go, he said, fine, I'll keep my job, they got to go. Buck had the same exact situation in 1995 after they lost to the Mariners. Steinbrenner in the front office said, I don't remember the coaches specifically, but he had to get rid of at least 2, maybe 3 of his coaches, and he could stay. And he said, no, F you, I'm out of here, and left. I mean, people think he got fired. He did get fired because he wouldn't move his coaches, right? But again, that's the difference to me, again, between Aaron Boone and Buck Showalter. He's got his people's backs, his players' backs, his coaches' backs. And Aaron Boone will make excuses right and left for his players, but it's obvious he doesn't have his coaches' backs because they're not here, and he is. Now he's doing a great job. So he's probably not in trouble, but they better continue to win, and they better win in the playoffs because, as you just said a minute ago, the regular season doesn't matter. He's been very successful. He hasn't won.
Yeah, and his winning percentage is high because of the teams that he's been coaching. Yeah. I've been in the playoffs, but there hasn't been a championship, and I believe that's one of the things that's going to like rear its head back into the mix of getting him fired.
It is
if he does get fired.
Yeah, Kenny's kind of jumping at us. Let me put this in. I think he's talking about the winning. Yes, it's the hope of all teams to win, but it isn't the expectation to win every single year like it is in New York. I mean, the Yankees, whether it's reasonable or not. I mean,
especially for the wages that are paid out to these players.
Yeah,
and then the cost of attending a game and buying a jersey is a lot higher than it.
And the history. Look at, Yankee fan and always have been, and I know, my expectations are probably unreasonable, but to win one World Series since 2000 and in 20 years, basically, that's not acceptable. Not acceptable. And
then for Boone and in his defense, he might have thrown those coaches under the bus because that's what it sounds like, but the alternative wasn't bad either. For him to get new coaching in. And replace these guys, it wasn't a bad idea because if you're not gonna get a new general manager, a new manager, then you have to get other pieces around you. And he got a lot of coaches that have good experience. And he picked up the Mets' coach and made him now he's on the team. So,
but if I'm a coach and you're coming to work for a guy who threw his best friend in baseball under the bus and let him get fired so he could keep his job, don't you think twice that is he going to have my back when it comes down to it?
Yeah, I mean, loyalty and respect and all those things come into play in the back end when you're an actual winning coach, and you've been there for a while. But this is business, man, and all these coaches know that they do the merry-go-round. This is a new type of atmosphere for coaching. Coaches don't last more than 3 years on some of these teams, so they all know this, and some of them, some of them have 4 or 5 jobs ready to go before they even get hired as in their actual coaching job. So,
but Aaron Boone could have stuck up for his coaches, got himself fired, and got another job. I mean, Aaron Boone would have got another job. He would have. He probably could have got the Padre job. Place obviously, but. There's a lot of jobs that were open. I'm sure he could have got one of them.
I'm glad Alan mentioned Chris Woodward of the Rangers.
Chris Woodward up. I want to talk about Chris Woodward.
Yeah, he's on my list on the hot seat for sure.
I mean, I do think Ranger fans, and Alan is probably a good example of this, may have had unreasonable expectations going into this year because of the fact they signed 2 really good players to huge contracts. But you still win with pitching in this league, and they don't have any. I know they're off to a hot start. But this is a guy who's never even sniffed 500, lost 102 games last year.
Right.
They better. I think if this team doesn't at least finish over 500, if they don't contend for the playoffs with more teams in it, I think he'll get fired myself, and I think deservedly so.
Yeah, I mean, 2018 he was 78 and 84.
Yeah,
I mean, but again, if I'm Woodward, I'm out. I leave the team for the reason that the GM and they've moved all these pitchers from the Rangers, but they haven't received anything back for that in the long run. And it hasn't helped the Rangers, like you said, in their aspect of winning. Pitching is key on all the teams, and the Rangers lack that, and they have no depth in the minors as well. And a lot of have a couple players, but
there's management, right? And this always comes into play. It'll come into play in a lot of guys we talk about. And a lot of guys in a hot seat have not had good management to back them up. And this is another example.
And it's not that he's not maybe trying. It's just that when you have a team and you don't have a well-balanced team, it comes out. In baseball, it shows out like really fast, and you lose a ton of games because of that. And we could go straight to Joe Girardi's case right now if you want to. I'll give you the floor, Keith. Go ahead.
We can jump to Joe Girardi. We got a couple other ones I know that Alan brought up, but he's on my list too, so we won't miss him. Let's jump to Joe Girardi. The team's under 500, 18 and 20. He didn't put the team together with this horrendous pitching and this horrendous defense. He didn't get Bryce Harper hurt, so he can only DH for the next 2 months or whatever it is at a minimum. Which hurts the defense further because he was probably the only good defensive player on the team. But Joe Girardi, again, I've got a long history with Joe Girardi, obviously with the Yankees, and I've always said this, that Joe Girardi has underperformed. He made the playoffs most years, but again, he won 1 World Series with the Yankees, got to 1 World Series with the Yankees, and his teams he's wound so tight And you can't tell me he's not wound tight. And I laugh too at people who say that, Aaron Boone has fallen prey to Ryan Cashman and the analytics craze, but so did Joe Girardi. Joe Girardi didn't manage by the seat of his pants. He was an analytics guy all the way. And he's wound so tight, and I do think it affects the team. And this team plays tight. And you can't have the small margin of error they have. They've got to score a ton of runs. They just can't play tight. And this team, I don't think, is going to get better under Joe Girardi.
Right. And one of the things that I think the Phillies were trying to do was out hit the Mets and the rest of the East here with the pitching that was coming up for the Braves as well. And it's not a concept that always works out. And in Girardi's case, I'm sure he wasn't fighting to get these hitters, but they've had issues with some of these players that are prospects that they're not getting play out of. They had that issue with Herrera. I forget his name. Herrera.
Yeah.
Whether to keep him in the majors or just go ahead and knock him down to the minors. And when they did that, they created a huge hole in that position. And of course, the defense lacks on that side when they did that.
Mm-hmm.
I think he was a front runner of getting the ex-Yankee on that team, Girardi. But
who, Didi?
Didi Gregorius? Yeah, I think that was a bad move. I mean, I know he knows Didi, but Didi was coming off of a Tommy John surgery, and he was coming off 2 bad seasons. Not playoffs. No, he came off of a bad playoff, but he was a decent 2 seasons.
And
so
years with the Yankees, but the injury really derailed him. And
and I think he came back too fast from the injury, as well. So when he was with the Yankees, and then that just the contract situation and all that. Cashman did good by getting rid of him, but Joe Girardi did bad by trying to pick him up. I know he was trying to have somebody in his dugout that knows about winning and stuff like that, but that hasn't helped the Phillies at all in his case. So I think he has that on his coattails that he's hanging on to Didi. The Bryce Harper situation, that no matter where Bryce goes, that's going to be the situation. He's good if he's on the field playing and hitting, and he's bad if he's not on the field hitting and playing. Because that's what you get with a superstar, as a player like Trout. I mean, like Harper. I'm sorry.
Bryce Harper's had some great years.
Yeah. I mean, he's still MVP. Player. So, but he's of course he's MVP when he's on the field, right?
And then last year he was a great player. And
then I don't know why the Phillies keep signing this guy, their pitcher, but he hasn't pitched. He's come on in and out of surgeries and injuries, and he hasn't pitched almost half a season now, right?
Which guy are we talking about?
The tall guy. I forget.
Aaron Nolan?
No.
Juarez, Gibson.
No.
Eflin?
No, not Zach Wheeler. The other guy.
Wheeler. That's their 5 starters.
Who?
Zach Wheeler, Aaron Nola.
Nope.
Roger Suarez, Kyle Gibson, and Zach Eflin are their 5 starters right now.
Right. So they had a problem. Kaneba had the injury, and then Nola right now. Nola is struggling, right? So
Nola's been struggling for a couple of years.
Yeah. So like end of last year, and then in the beginning of this year. So I think he might have an injury that he's trying to play off, but who knows? And it's just not it's just been bad for Joe Girardi, especially since he's a pitcher heavy, offensive minded coach,
Yeah, we're going to talk about we're definitely going to talk about Brian Ross too, or David Ross too.
You want to talk about David Ross? I would rather talk about Rocco.
Yeah, eventually we'll talk to okay. You could go pick another guy.
Rocco Baldelli.
Rocco Baldelli,
yeah.
Come on, the Phillies are my sleeper pick to make the playoffs and win that Central Division. They played well early. They've been stumbling a little bit here recently, and they've fallen to oh, no, I take that back. They're still 6 games over 500. Why would you think Rocco Baldelli's in trouble? He had a bad year last year, but a really good year the year before, and having a good year this year. Why is he in trouble?
Because now this team has now they have what's his name on the team? Gary Sanchez.
Okay.
So that's why he's in trouble.
Oh, he's in trouble just because Gary Sanchez is going to get him fired. All right, I don't have an argument against that. But if he wins the Central Division, he's not getting fired. Rocco Baldelli, in my mind, has done a great job here in Minnesota.
You think so?
They had a lot of injuries.
Yeah, they got a ton of injuries, man.
On the field, it's always been the thing. They keep Buxton on the field. It's a really good team.
Yeah, they have a former Met there that's playing very well.
Who is it? Who's that?
The shortstop.
Oh, hang on, let me look at the
Jimenez.
Yeah, that's right. Korea's hurt, right? So, are you sure you're not thinking about the Indians?
Oh, did they go? I'm sorry. Yeah, I am thinking about it.
He's on the Indians. Yeah,
I'm sorry.
They traded 2 great shortstops, and I think one of them's playing the outfield.
Yeah.
To Cleveland. So I don't know about Baldelli. I think he's there. But since we talked about Cleveland, I think Terry Francona's done after this year. But I think he walks away on his own.
I think he's gonna walk away too. Like
he gets fired, but his health issues over the last few years.
Health, like it just seems like he's not into it. I don't think like motivation, and I think this is his health and the fact that he knows that the team's lacking a few players that can get him over the hump.
Yeah, I think this team is. Again, I think they're a couple of years away from contending as well. I mean, they got off to a decent start this year, but they've really fallen back here recently. While we're in the Central Division, Tony La Russa. This team is underperforming. A lot of injuries. I get that. They had a lot of injuries last year as well, and they won the division, but were a big disappointment in the playoffs. And this is a win-now team. Tony La Russa is a win-now manager. He's like 100 years old.
Right.
I mean, if this team doesn't win this division, is Tony La Russa it's still got a job.
Yeah, I mean, he's out of respect, right? From legacy and, out of respect for the man and what he's done in the sport. So he's going to be okay. He has to walk away if he's not,
Thanks, Kenny.
wanting to play. What did he say?
He said he always enjoys to chat even with Carlos. So you're winning Kenny over. I think he's trying to lure you up to the mountain. So be careful. Yeah,
we're gonna try to catch these games at West Point, right?
Yeah, I'm telling you, I'm going to look for tickets for that Texas San Antonio game.
Yeah, but I think if the Tigers get rid of La Russa, it'd be because he walked away, not because they fire him.
The White Sox.
I'm sorry, the White Sox.
That's probably a good point too. He could walk away at any point, because he's not a young man, and again, I thought he'd do well there. There are questions about the game passing you by, but I just thought he'd be all right.
With him, I always thought that he would get into like middle management and go into like GM and stuff like that. And he never. I don't know if he tried to and it didn't work out, but he should have stayed in that register because the game has changed so much.
Yeah,
and I think even too like a coach like Buck and Baker, they kind of struggle sometimes because of the analytics and you get. Stuff on this side and then stuff on this side, and then you see what the players are doing, and you try to go with your gut and trying to balance all that out, and I think it's overwhelming, and some people don't realize that it is. And then you throw in the money factor. Some of these guys are getting paid way too much, and you're not getting the effort out of them, or they're not motivated, or whatever the deal is. And so, a guy like La Russa should have been in middle management, upper management for sure.
Well, he was with the Diamondbacks for a while.
So. Yeah, that's what I thought, right? And then he just wanted to get back into coaching.
Yeah. Well, another guy in this, and I'll stick here for a second, just because we're in the Central. AJ Hinch has got to be feeling some pressure. Detroit was a team people expected based off of their strong second half last year and some of the moves they made in the offseason to be a contender in the Central and make a leap. Maybe that was over,
reaching. No, I think AJ Hinch is safe for at least another season. And I say that because I think they're going to give him that COVID season as a pass, because he just got back into coaching anyways. And I think they're trying to build something there.
Yeah.
It's just like every other team, though, they're struggling finding consistent pitching and starters,
Yeah. And again, I don't think there's going to be a better option. I feel a lot of times don't fire guys just for the sake of firing them. If you got something to bring them in. And I don't know that they're going to find a better guy than AJ Hinch.
Yeah, and it's those are one of those teams that want to develop players and look towards the future. Usually, a team like the Detroit Tigers, and they usually have a good setup for doing that. But then sometimes they lose a lot of good players and trades. So
And very quickly to finish up the Central, because it looks like, if your Baldelli, if your Baldelli reference could come true, every manager in this division could get fired, because Mike Matheny has got to be in trouble in Kansas City. He's in the middle of his third straight really bad year after a really good run with the Cardinals. This is a team I don't know that they're patient enough to stay the course with this guy.
Yeah, so the Royals have a problem with they don't know whether they want to stay moving forward and picking up free agents and paying for them and stabilizing that team and making it stronger, or do they want to build a farm system and kind of just grow from there? And you got to pick one or the other. You can't be at both. It's sometimes the draft helps you and trades help you to do both, but that's situational. That's not a good standard, structure to have structure and to win. You got to pick one. You're going to go and be a mixed team, or you're going to go with a young team. So if you don't pick in the early runs, which is what happened as they started making trades and trying to move on from players, and then they kind of just got stuck in the middle. And Matheny's kind of stuck in the middle with them, and it's hard for a manager to coach when the GM isn't helping you and with the players. And so right now that's where the Royals are. They're stuck in the middle. And Matheny, if I'm him, I'll walk away because and try to go to a team that's a little bit more set up, because this is not a good setup for him. And that ownership and management, they're not looking for today. They're looking for tomorrow and building for the future. It looks like.
We said that about a lot of guys. They might walk away, but not many guys walk away. They get fired.
I know, right? If you had the choice, man, just run.
You've got to remember something too. Part of that is they want their money. If they get fired, they're going to get paid to whatever money they got coming too. So if they walk away, they're not.
I can see Matheny maybe even going back into the minors for a few years. Would probably be his best bet, because a lot of teams lose confidence when you have a team that's young or that's in the middle, in a transitional period of their season, that they can't get wins. Owners and GMs are looking at this coach doesn't have it, right? Or this coach needs a little bit more. He needs to be seasoned a little bit more. So I think Matheny missed that opportunity to be in the minors a little and coach and get a little bit more seasoned. And he might end up being back in the minors, because I find it hard and he was up for being the coach, I think, for the Mets and the Yankees at one point. And for the Yankees, I think they were going to pick him up as one of the base coaches, but
not a manager, but
not a manager. Yeah. But so, and he didn't get the experience that he needs to get to be a manager. So, and the GMs, they had him high on the list. So he needs to do something to make sure his career stays on track for sure.
All right, enough about the Central. I'll let you throw another name out, since I know you had a list.
Brandon Hyde.
Any Baltimore managers in trouble at any point in time. So I would not be shocked to see Brandon Hyde get fired anytime between now and the end of the season. I think they'll probably go another direction next year for sure. And
I don't know if he'll be a coach anywhere else, man.
Don't know. Again, a lot of these look at who know. You don't know. A lot of these guys are going to private sector now too. So depends on what their background is. So what else you got on your list for? I got a couple guys, and see if you miss them.
Diamondbacks coach Torey.
Well, they, until a recent slide here. Let's see where the record is today. They're 3-7 their last 10. They actually were one of the bigger surprises in baseball. There were a couple games over 500 just a week ago.
I know, right? So
he hasn't done a bad job. Again, this is another place where, man, they have just traded all their talent away.
Yeah.
They continue to talk about trading guys that are still any good away, and Marte and a couple other guys. So I don't know whether I can blame him for their lack of success. But again, if you lose X amount of years, you're going to get fired. They're not going to keep you around forever.
It's hard to be a winning team in some of those teams, and some of those mid-market, small-market teams. It's tough. It's very tough. And
Bud Black's in kind of the same situation in Colorado. Again, start, but they don't do anything to help him get wins, man.
But look, in reality too, and if you look at how things are going, Keith, a lot of these teams are depending on some of these young kids that are pitchers that have very little experience, man. You know, and look at the
see that again.
and
Billy getting rehired 5 times by the same team.
yeah, but that's a good one. But you know, pitching is what's hurting a lot of these teams right now, and then the minors they're not even doing that great of a job.
Well,
some of these kids come up and they struggle. You know,
you made a good point earlier, Carlos. That's hard for me to spit out, but you made a good point earlier about the minor leagues being contracted, and that's hurting the development, I think, of pitchers more than anything. You know, and I think it will continue to see this. And Major League Baseball probably doesn't care because all they want to do is see runs scored anyway. They don't want to see 2-to-1 pitching duels.
Yeah, but are you going to do it at the expense of your hitters that are getting hit and popped in the head, the ribs, and the shins and stuff?
At some point, they're going to have to look at that because, you're putting the guys, the highest paid guys on your team at risk with kids who aren't able to harness the great stuff that they have. So,
yeah. And then I think I was watching a few games last night and in the afternoon, and some of these pitches these guys are hitting that are not in the strike zone and making good hits out of them are, and it's always been the case. You know, some of these guys reaching to get a hit. It's coming up more often, and that's why I feel like some of these umpires are having issues calling strikes because these guys are swinging at things anyways, and so I mean, and that's because they need an opportunity to hit. You know, some of these pitchers are nasty. So you know, I saw like 3 or 4 hits yesterday that were way out of the strike zone. Some of these guys is like, especially like Pujols and some of these guys are they're strong enough and just pulling them in and just getting hits out of them. It's crazy.
Some of the umpiring so bad they got to swing at those pitches.
That's another thing. You know, it's kind of like a back and forth.
If Angel Hernandez is behind the plate, you better go up there ready to swing at that.
I saw Molina because I saw the Mets game in the afternoon. He threw his bat at an Edwin Diaz throw that was a slider because he couldn't catch up to it.
Yeah.
Like he was like, I'm not going to strike out. Like I'm not going down like this. So he threw his bat at the ball.
Let's talk about a couple guys that one team especially that had great expectations and another that maybe less so, but still had some expectations this year. First, we'll start with Toronto and Charlie Montoya. This is a classic example. And again, I think it would be awful if he got fired. I think he's a good manager. I don't do.
Look, I don't think that
he's the kind of guy who could get fired to light a spark under this team. Yeah,
no, I mean, like who would the Blue Jays pick up to light that spark?
There'd have to be some. I'm trying to think of a guy available. And again, that's what I say you have to have somebody who can do it. There's not a Billy Martin to just throw a name out there to bring in and say, you guys are going to, do it my way to the highway and let's get it going or you're all out of here.
So I picked Toronto as one of those sneaky teams to win the division too, maybe. And it's one of the things about being young and having a lack of experience and it's a long season, right?
Not a sneaky pick to win a division. They should be winning this division.
Well, I say it's sneaky because they're a young, fast team. They're pretty good on defense and they have great offense. But
they got everything.
Yeah, they have a great balanced team. The problem that the one thing that makes them tough to root for is that they are young and inexperienced.
Yeah.
And in the baseball that will catch up to you, and it shows right now in the beginning of the season towards the middle of the season, and that's when things start clicking and the guys start working together better, teamwork, esprit de corps, all that gets built up. And the problem is that it is a team that spent money to win now with pitching. And the pitching's kind of like flaking on them.
Hey, if they weren't in my division, I'd be rooting for them. They're a fun team to watch play baseball, and they're better than a 20-18 record, and they need to get it going. Or they may look to put a spark plug in there.
No, I think the one thing that they need to do is just keep grinding away, and the pitching you just need to get a little bit better. The middle relief is blowing some of these games, and Alex Cora wants to leave, though. I mean,
this is where I was going next. Alex Cora, who, by the way, may be lucky he has a job. He's the only guy who caught up in the
scandal,
the cheating scandal, which again I will say was totally overblown. That actually. Oh no, I take that back. Hinch got a job too.
Yeah, Hinch got a job.
But Cora got brought back and last year and had, I thought, a better than expected season last year. I had them picked to finish last year. I was just a year off.
Yeah, but what is it about that Red Sox team that you think is not?
I'm not really sure. I mean, not getting good pitching, and their bullpen's been terrible.
So every team we've talked about some of these coaches, It's pitching.
It's
So,
always, and that's almost always the case.
yes and no, because it's you got like the Padres who got great pitching, but they're not. None of them are starting because they're all injured. So, like
even last year, they didn't get great pitching out of Snell, or I mean, their best pitcher was Musgrove, but he wasn't expected to be the fifth starter for crying out loud. You know,
so like injuries have a huge thing, play a huge role. But oh my gosh, Cora, what can I say about the Boston Red Sox? I mean, I dislike them because I'm a Yankees fan, but
I can see him getting fired if this ship doesn't get righted here in the next few weeks.
do you really want to get rid of it? Look, here's the thing, and I'll throw this out there. If Alex Cora gets fired, do the Blue Jays pick him up?
Could be. I mean, that would be an interesting scenario,
Right?
Again, both guys, and we talked about both of them. That would light a spark possibly under the Blue Jays.
And Alex Cora just needs a talented team. I mean, you can see what you can tell what he's done with a talented team. And there's no more talent. There's no more talent than a team in Toronto.
Yeah.
That's
a great point, Dave Galletto. I was going to get to that one, so thank you for bringing that up. The last guy I want to I'm going to bundle two guys together, but the last guy I want to talk about who had some decent expectations was Scott Servais in Seattle. This team was expected to make a leap this year,
right?
With a lot of their young talent. They just bring up their number one pitching prospect.
Mm-hmm.
They're languishing, near the bottom of the AL West and not able to get any kind of consistency. And then
that's important right there. The consistency. I saw Seattle battle the Mets. They did a pretty good job. Of course, right now the Mets have a issue with pitching, but they did a real good job playing them. Kept them from winning that series, right? So he's not a bad coach. I mean, he's not bad. He's not doing bad coaching as a manager, but and the situation there is that they're all young, man. They're maybe a season and a half, 2 seasons. Again, I picked them as well because of the youth. Yeah. But
90 wins last year. I mean, they were expected to improve on this and contend for the playoffs this year.
Again, I think they're in that lull that the Toronto Blue Jays are in. That they had that youth that they don't have enough experienced players on the team to push them up. Yeah. Right. That's why losing a player like Cano on the team last year kind of hurt the Mets. Cano's he's Cano, but players like that, the veteran help. Look at the Cardinals. They got Molina and Pujols, and those guys are back together after this is like 22 years or something that they played together. So, and that helps. But sometimes you need that youth to get you over the hump.
If Seattle doesn't make a move this year and Don Mattingly leaves the Marlins, I think, and the Seattle moves on from Services, I think this would be an ideal spot for Don Mattingly to get hired on this. And this is a young team, the kind of team that he's thrived with, and I think this would be a good spot for him.
Yeah, and they got a player like Rodriguez who's hot, man. He just got to put some things together, and he's going to be a great player up there in Seattle. Donnie Baseball could help a team like Seattle. Yeah, definitely.
We got to wrap it up. We ran out of time, but we throw out these two names, and we're going to, as we start to get ready to go, David Ross and David Bell, you're both going to get fired. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Organizations are doing a horrible job for you. The Reds are the most mismanaged team in baseball.
And like you said, you can't walk away. You're more likely to get fired, and I feel bad. Yeah. That situation there just kind of like –
those guys both deserve better than what they got.
Yeah, and I don't know if any other team will give them an opportunity.
No, that's a tough one to overcome. Good point. Carlos, thanks today. Great job. We'll continue, guys, every Friday.
Girardi's safe, man. Don't worry about it.
Guys, don't be afraid to throw debate topics at us as well. We'll be glad to jump into them as well. So send me those debate topics, and you guys have a great weekend. Carlos, a great job.
Everyone, guys.
Mad New Yorker. Are you serious? Right here on the Northeast Streaming Sports Network. We'll catch you next week. Bye-bye.